You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
So the first one, just to recap, is you're spending so much time and energy on all the business background stuff that people don't really see, rather than the hard and courageous work of having the conversations and letting people know through conversation and through experience that you are coaching now. And this is what you're doing. So there's the mistake, and there's kind of the solution is don't spend so much time there and do the things that you're the most fearful of. And doing the things you're most fearful of kind of leads into the second biggest mistake, and that's that we're not spending enough time and energy on our own development, on our own personal development. And, as a coach, do you ever find yourself like, oh, well, I teach personal development. I help people become their best self and to conquer their fears every day. Of course, I listen to myself and I'm perfect in that, Do we ever try to fool ourselves in thinking that or saying that? Rather, it's so much easier to identify these problems in the clients that we're working with and completely ignore them in our own life. And so continuing to work on our own personal development, our own recognition of the fears that are exactly keeping us stuck in the business and in other areas of life is a really important overlooked aspect of the first year of coaching. And sometimes it's simply because we think, oh my gosh, I'm not really making a whole lot of money yet. I can't afford to, invest in myself yet. I have to wait till I actually have arrived before I can reinvest in myself. So that's a major mistake that we see a lot of coaches do. And I certainly have fallen into that as well.
Yeah, and I want to look at it from a business standpoint, because this took me a while to kind of think through it. Like if you were starting any average business, you're likely going to get a loan to start that business.
Yeah.
The advantage of an online business is that you probably don't need to put in much, like maybe a couple of $1,000 or $500 or something. And all you need is yourself and a company, which is in Ontario, that you pay $300. You start a company with a little bit of money in your business account. Let's say if you get started with that. But when you're actually looking at it, the actual money that needs to go in is your development as a coach and as a business owner. Because that's where, if you really think about it, like if somebody buys an average business, they have some idea of it running, or it runs itself to a certain degree. Like if you go to a brick and mortar business, for example, let's get a laundromat. First of all, it has a customer base. It's been probably running for 20 plus years, 10 plus years, and you're making some improvements, and you learn they will probably train you in that process, or you get a store or whatever it is. It's not that complicated. It's fairly straightforward. But if you think of the coaching, not just, I'm going to coach people, but I'm going to run a coaching business. Do you know how a coaching business runs?
Mm-hmm.
Likely most coaches don't even look at the coaching as a business. They just look at it, I coach.
Yeah.
It's a big disconnect. I was having another conversation with another two coaches. We're actually thinking about collaborating with my business coaches, and they've been on this, and we were talking about this, is that they see the same disconnect, that the coaches don't look at themselves as business owners, and that's one of the biggest things that holds them back. And if you don't understand how business runs and you don't invest in your development, so initially that means you need to be investing. First of all, you need to be reading every book there is on business, on sales, on marketing, on business, on coaching, how a coaching business works. And which means that out of, let's say, your study is about 10 books initially, starting out in the first few months to just even get started. But then while you're doing that, you're investing in coaching. You're investing in getting your own coach who's going to kind of guide you, somebody who has been there for a while, and maybe even a mix of a coach and a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
Might be much more helpful. Somebody who knows how business works, because they'll be able to direct you a little bit better. And that without that, it will be very, very slow progress that you're looking at, even if you read the books. And that's something took me a while to kind of register. But when I started registering that, I realized I'm like, okay, that's the investment for the business. I need to invest back in my business. And because I am the business initially, I need to invest in my own development and skill sets. Like without that, it just nothing moves forward. And what we do is we kind of put out a bunch of personal development stuff. We hope that clients come to us. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And the awesome thing about business development, so the personal and professional development that we're talking about at the beginning of starting a business, is it is an investment that will always have an ROI. And the reason I can be confident and say it will always have a return on the investment is because no matter what happens with your coaching business, maybe you end up pivoting and out of coaching and maybe more into consulting, or maybe you realize you hate coaching, something about it, and you're like, and I know, right? How could that possibly happen? And you, and you end up pivoting to some entirely different or business. You, as a person, are so much more knowledgeable, experienced, and better at life and understanding complex ideas and patterns that you are better than you were before. So this is a type of investment. Like if you invested in crypto, I'm sorry, man. Like if you invested a year ago, you have lost a lot of that money and it is not coming back. Well, okay, I can't say that. It might come back. You have to be patient. But what I'm saying is you lost the money. Like it's
investor mind kicked in.
It's gonzo. But if you had invested in yourself as a person, your knowledge, who you are, your character, all of that sort of stuff, that never goes. I mean, if it does go, it's by your choice. It is part of you. It has become part of you. So you never lose out when you invest in yourself in these ways.
And so it brings me to a distinction, which was really powerful for me, because like when we're starting out, because we don't have a lot of money coming out, our goal is to like get money, because that will get, which is fine, but there's a key distinction there. And I think initially I intuitively knew that. I'm like, okay, let's say I make $30,000 in the next 2 months, 30,000 or 40,000 or whatever with coaching. If I make that just because I got connected to some people and I make that money, and then after that I have a package going for that goes for, let's say, 3 months or so, what happens after that?
Mm-hmm.
I might have made that money by chance because I got connected to some people and my skills might not have been at par, so I didn't get the referrals. I don't have a system for creating new leads. Where am I going to go from there? So initially, like as much as the cash flow is important, what's even more important is creating a system that consistently creates that cash flow. If you don't have a system, it doesn't actually matter how much money you create, because there are quite a few people that can create money, but then they can't repeat it. They can't repeat the cycle and they can't amplify it. In fact, actually, Grant Cardone said that. It's like most people don't know how to create money, repeat the process and amplify that to another level. And if you can't do that, it actually doesn't matter how much money you make initially. You need to have a system where that you can consistently say that, hey, if I talk to this many people, I can predictably say I can make this much revenue. So for example, I know with my conversion rate and how I do my coaching right now, if I do 6 strategy sessions a month, I am sure to make at least $20,000 to $30,000 a month. Like if I do 6 strategy sessions on average, that's how much it will be. Sometimes it'll be a little bit less, but on average it falls around it. So I know in my mind, if I want to do more, I need to do more either strategy sessions, or I need to do more group calls. I need to get in front of events. Yeah. And at some point I kind of ran out of bandwidth. So I created a group. So now I'm focused on getting more people in my group. So I raised my one-on-one rates. So people are going more into my groups now. So that's another way of kind of amplifying that number. But none of that happens until you're looking at it from learning the skill set of making money. So it's like teach him that proverb of, is it proverb? Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, and teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. You need to learn how to fish. Or how
Yes. And as you're listening to Faisal, you might be thinking, and that's why I need to get all the business stuff set up first. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying you've got to do the work of getting the practice of coaching first. It's like a ship that's anchored. you can't steer a ship if the anchor is down. And if all you're doing at the beginning of your business is just doing all the background stuff and trying to set up all the fancy systems and stuff, you're anchored and you're not going anywhere. But if you pull the anchor up and you let it free float, and because that's probably what's going to feel like at the beginning, you're kind of free floating. You're like, you're getting tossed by the waves. And you're like, this doesn't feel so good. I just had a strategy session and I tanked it. I'm horrible. Like, this is never going to go well. Like, I suck. Like, these are the things that go through our minds. And so it does feel like you're being bounced around, but persevere in that, because as you then pick up momentum, you can start to steer the ship more intentionally. And that more intentional steering is where the solution to the second mistake of coaches in their first year, where they don't learn business, they don't learn systems. That's the steering of the ship after the anchor's pulled. So you got to pull the anchor first and do your little, getting tossed around by the waves a little bit. And then as you're doing your personal and professional development and growing, then you can kind of more accurately steer the ship. And then that's when you really start to see kind of everything come together.
Yeah, and I want to give a recommendation for those who are listening. Definitely pick up the book by Steve Chandler. I'm almost done with it. It's called 37 Ways to Boost Your Coaching Business. It's brilliant. He just basically calls you out on pretty much every lie that you tell yourself.
Ooh.
I'm like, oh my God, that's brutal. Oh my God, that's true. Oh my God, that's brutal.
We need to walk through those in some of our podcasts.
Yeah, we need to go through those because it's really like a lot of it is mindset, but a lot of it is business stuff too. Is that
that's awesome.
Ourselves. And like that's one of the reasons why I love Steve Chandler, because he's very blunt, he's very direct, but from a good place, not because he knows that. Like, I think one of the developments, like I've kind of followed him a little bit to just understand his story. He realized a lot of his stuff much later in his life, like 50s or like late 50s, I think. And he's like, I woke up in my late 50s. I don't have time to mess around. So he's that kind of coach. He was very blunt. He was, I think, because he was so blunt with himself, he was so straightforward and he had to tell the truth. That's why I think his coaching style became very much like that. And even his books, when you read it, it's hilarious. And if you haven't read his other book, Crazy Good at Sitting There, it's really funny book. I was like laughing and crying at the same time.
That's awesome.
In any case, so I want to give a challenge around this. So if you really want to understand what it takes to build a business, just set a goal. Your goal can be this week, do whatever it takes, or starting at today up until and this day, next week, get in 10 conversations. If you can find 10 people to have 10 coaching conversations and make an offer to them, you will understand what it takes to build a business. Until you've had those at least first 10 initial conversations, you don't know what's happening, because you will find out a lot of challenges. First, you will find out that, there is a confidence challenge. Mm-hmm. You're getting in your head when you're doing the coaching session. Before you're getting on it, you're getting all nervous and thinking, am I going to be able to add value? And when you're within the session, you don't know where to navigate sometimes. Like, which way should I take the conversation? And then you're thinking about the sales. Is this person going to buy? Like, there's so much happening. You don't realize it until you do these actual conversations with potential clients. And then when you get to the offer, you're like, oh shit, I'm not good at sales. What am I going to do? And then you make an offer and you're nervous about it. And before you speak anything, you've screwed up everything to begin with. I'm not painting a negative picture, but that's what it takes for you to understand, I need to improve every step of the way, from the point that I have the initial conversation all the way to the offer and the follow-up and the delivery.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. And so we did 2 master classes, one on marketing, one on the sales process, and we're going to do one on delivery. I think it's end of the month. We're going to announce that by next week, I think.
Yeah.
And that's going to be around, like, how do you deliver an initial session that would add enough value and create enough urgency for people to join your program? Because if you can't do that, it doesn't matter what you study in coaching. It doesn't even matter how great you are as a coach. There are no clients to serve. If you can't help anybody, there is no business. And the ultimate purpose of that business is to serve people. And then in return, you get a monetary benefit out of it, at least one of the benefits.
Yes. And so when Faisal says we are doing master classes, he is referring to the Coaching Mastery community, which is a community that is connected with the Coach's Journey podcast. It's a community of coaches international from everywhere. We're still working on one from Antarctica. Would love to have it. So if you're listening to this from Antarctica, you're a coach and a scientist, we'd love to have you in our membership, because you would be a unicorn to us. It would be amazing. But we're a group of coaches and we work on helping each other get better. And so we do a lot of masterminding. We're not coming at you saying, here's the 7-step program you all must follow in order to get $1 million this year in your coaching practice. That's not the pitch that we have, because that's not really being genuine to, in our opinion, that's not really being genuine, one, to the reality of most coaches, but also to every coach is a bit different, has different skill sets, has different desires for where they want their coaching business to be. Everything's a little bit different. So we really work at sharing information about what's working in business, what's not working, and helping people grow their coaching business in the way that makes sense for them, which then brings us to the mistake number 3 for the first year of coaching. And that is this perspective that, okay, my coaching business is my business. You know, it's maybe a sole proprietor, maybe even have it as an S corp, but you are probably the sole owner. So we get in this perspective that because I'm the sole owner, I got to do it all. This is all on me. This is all on my shoulders. I got to figure everything out. But that's really not the most helpful perspective or approach. Enter Coaching Mastery community. Faisal, why are we saying that mindset, that perspective is a mistake?
It connects back to how we learn as human beings, and we kind of forget that. Like, how do we learn growing up? We were around other kids. There's a huge social component that, like, our kids are homeschooled, but every day my wife takes them to, literally almost every day they go with other homeschooling moms. They have activities, whether it's many of them are play-based, but they're around each other to learn from each other, connect with each other. It gives the social, but they actually learn through that process. That's a very important process. And that's one of the biggest objections around homeschooling is, well, what if they don't connect with people? Which is a legitimate objection, because kids need other kids. Human beings need other human beings. Now, fast forward this, like, every successful business owner that I've talked to, they're part of multiple business masterminds, not just one, multiple business masterminds. And they will, some of them, based on how they structure their time and stuff, they might go to like a 2-day event or a 3-day event once a year or twice a year, or they might be part of an ongoing thing where they go there, connect with other, literally, and this is how it looks like. I've had a few clients where they just go to these, they don't have exactly a lot of content like the way we do it. They just sit there, connect with these, network with these people, and one of them will give a presentation about some specific area of their business is what they're doing. And they get each other's perspective. Hey, I'm trying this thing. They connect with each other. I'm trying this thing in my real estate path or in this other path. What are your thoughts? And because they know that they have actually results in that area, it actually helps them a lot. Or they just hear something that they're doing, like, holy shoot, I never thought of this.
Yeah. And
now add to that, the world of business, what's happening right now is very, very different than a few years ago. We live in a much more competitive, much more, the transmission of technology information is so fast. So for example, one of the sessions we're going to do is going to be on ChatGPT. So if you're not going to use ChatGPT in the next few months, you should already be using it, by the way. But if you're not, you're probably going to fall behind as a business owner. And I'll tell you why. And I was shocked myself. So I went to a session in one of my masterminds that I attend. Went through ChatGPT. We got it started. The next morning, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing that I always do. Like, I'll sit there, create content and stuff. It's going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to think through this stuff. I sit there and I just enter some inquiries or queries, however they want to call it, into ChatGPT. Okay, here's a post I'm thinking about doing. Like, can you give me a better version of this from a marketing standpoint? Give me this. I'm like, oh my God, that looks much better. Like, can you make it more punchy? Can you give me some emojis that connects with that? Like, yes. Can you make the call to action more clear? It's like talking to 10 marketing people. I was shocked, and I was stuck with an email. I wrote a little bit of it. I'm like, can you draft this email? I'm thinking about this, that, and the other. And it just gave me a whole full email. Okay, can you make it more personal? Can you make it a little bit more funny? What can I not do with this thing? Basically, in 1.5 hours, and this is the first time I'm using it, in about an hour and a half, I was able to get something. Now, because I know what would happen in the past. I will get started with something and I will get stuck with the marketing message or something. I'll just sit on it. I'm like, okay, I'll figure this out later. And I haven't done the post. So I literally did 3 posts, 1 email, and I thought of the next training that I'm going to do. And on Monday, I did my whole training that I do in my community. Don't tell them. No, you can tell them. I literally came up with the whole framework from ChatGPT. Of course, I added my own things that I know, and I removed some of the things, and I had to do the delivery. It literally gave me parables. I'm like, can you give me a parable related to this? A story? I'm like, I don't know the story. You can ask it for jokes. It's ridiculous. So now think about it. And I actually was talking to a coach. He was like, he's like, I feel like it's an ethical dilemma. I'm going to go much more ahead versus somebody who's like, well, is it available to both of you? So all the coaches that they're like, yeah, it's free. It's open for everybody. Well, then you've chosen to take advantage of it. And I haven't. At that time, I wasn't using it. I'm like, if you go ahead in your business and I'm not, that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is just an example. Let's say you're not part of any community. You just hear about it in the news. You hear it on podcasts. You may not get or try it. And to this day, I know when I shared with a lot of coaches, they're like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. But they don't realize the benefits of it because they haven't experimented with it and they haven't heard enough about it. And so let's say 6 months out, a coach sets up, you can literally tell it, I'm a certified high performance coach. Give me some topics to talk about on my process, and set up a content calendar for the next 14 days. It'll do that for you. Now, another coach is sitting there trying to figure out what that looks like. This coach is already in action. They're going out there and delivering content, and they're getting connected with people. 6 months out, you're already behind. Not because there's something off about you. It's just you're not up to date in the business world.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.